I said, welcome everyone to Wealth Wednesday, where we come on and we talk about current products and concepts and things that'll help your business and ways to structure it, and just give you as much education as we can to give you the tools to go out and talk to your friends and family and market and things like that to work on your business. So as we do every single Tuesday, we start Tuesdays with Tim O'Rourke. He does his infamous Tim Talks on our WhatsApp group. If you're not part of that, message me and I can definitely add you to it. But Tim, if you would start today and give us the market update and your insights, I would greatly appreciate it.
You betcha, except it's Wednesday, Kimberly. You said Tuesday.
Oh, well, I work for myself. There's not really a calendar. I make it up. So
That's funny.
welcome on Wednesday.
Well, hey, everybody. I hope you're doing great and having a good week. Boy, as the world turns, there used to be a show. Wasn't there a show called As the World Turns? I think there was.
It's a fantastic daytime soap opera.
Yeah, I never saw it because I was always working.
I was a Days of Our Lives girl, so
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, yeah, so as the world turns, this I don't know if you saw my comments last night about wars. Wars are tricky things, they're once they start, they're hard to end. They get a life of their own. Look at the war in Ukraine, how long it's been going on, and it kind of goes through cycles, ups and downs, and this war that I don't even know that we call it a war. Is this really a war? I mean, that was kind of an unprovoked attack I saw that the U.S. and Israel had on Iran. I understand the psychology of why it all occurred. I don't know if we're going to get the end results, the true end results of what they say they're trying to accomplish. But some of the cause and effect of this is obviously higher oil prices, as we've seen at the pump. And it's the trickle down effect of all this, as we've been talking about, is pretty dramatic. Today, there is some talk of negotiations coming to a head where there is going to be some kind of a peace worked out. So this optimism of a peace deal is driving the markets today. In fact, I was just pulling it up here. The all the markets, the indexes across the board are up pretty substantially. The Dow's up 550 points at one point. S&P's up 80. Nasdaq's up 380. So you're seeing a broad response here to a possible peace deal, which would open up the Strait of Hormuz, which, when you think about bottlenecks in a system of transportation, obviously that's one of the big ones. The Suez Canal is another one. There are certain travel points in the globe where shipping are really key points of traffic. And as we've learned, that real narrow area there in the Persian Gulf that transfers not only oil, but a lot of other important commodities is causing some major disruptions in the supply chain. And that's why we've seen oil prices jump way up. But they have, obviously that's a premium. You know, there's a high probability that this could all fall apart too. So, you know, right now oil was down to about 93. Now it's at 95. It can move on a whim by $10 a barrel right now. WTI and Brent. Brent's down to 102. Oil's at WTI's at 94, 95, 95.40 right now. So anyway, this is really an interesting time to see if there is kind of any peace deal. From my perspective, I'm going to call a wild card on this one. I'm going to call a yellow flag. I don't think there is going to be any peace deal, in my opinion. Let's see what happens. That's me calling an option on the sideline. But what's interesting is really the markets have been very resilient through all this. I think Earnings, I commented on this last night. Earnings have been very strong. About 85% of the reporting companies so far have beaten their expectations. The S&P is up about 1% today. Nasdaq's up about 1.2%. You know, the optimism is behind artificial intelligence still. It's a big driver in the marketplace. Around 37 to 40% of the S&P right now is all AI, and the investment being made in that particular sector is huge. So I think the key drivers here that we're watching in the overall marketplace really are oil prices. And if you look back, let me go back in history a little bit to age how this all developed. So back in the oil embargo back in 1973, 1974, we had uh, basically the Middle East, the Arabs were upset with the U.S. supporting Israel in the war back then. And so what they did is they basically cut off oil supply, which doubled the price of oil immediately in the US. I remember pulling up my car in 1974 to a line at a Exxon station where it used to be 32 cents a gallon. It was 60 cents almost overnight. And so what we're going to see here is, I think, as gas prices stay high, it's going to have an inflationary effect, and it's going to keep prices high here through 2027. This isn't something that auto corrects itself, even if there is some kind of a peace deal and the Strait of Hormuz corrects itself and gets shipping back to some normalcy in that part of the world. So it's going to be interesting to see how long that takes to get that peace deal worked out, if there is one, and if there's still going to be drone attacks by Iran on any of the other UAE or the partners over there in the Middle East. So as we watch earnings, so that in the backdrop here, we see a lot of strong earnings coming out, which is driving the S&P, which is the broader market. You're seeing more of the chip makers like Micron, AMD. They're coming out with pretty good earnings, and that's going to create the rally. Obviously, NVIDIA is one of the big drivers, and so you've got this kind of AI optimism. You've got the earnings, and then you got the Middle East uneasiness. You got strong earnings. You've got the unrest with the war. So you've kind of got this counterbalance here, but we're hitting record highs again, you know, one after the other. The interesting part about gold and oil, though, is it's driving interest rates higher, which is really disrupting the housing market right now. So the medium house right now is around $390,000, about 6% lower than it was a year ago. And we're seeing interest rates in the 6.25% to 6.5% on a 30-year loan. So that, you know, this is the spring market right now, which is a hot time for all real estate. That's when it's probably the prime market, and it's slower than it normally is just because of higher interest rates. So the housing market is off a little bit. We're going to see inflation. I think we're going to see more and more inflation here as the year goes on, and so that's going to keep interest rates higher, which is going to hurt housing and the real estate market. It's going to keep the Fed kind of sitting on their hands. The Fed might even have to raise interest rates. I saw that a couple banks in the euro have actually raised interest rates because of their fear of trying to control inflation. So, so a lot of this has to be played out here in the economy, and what's going on in the Middle East is the big driver, in my opinion. U.S. payrolls, the labor market is still strong. The funny thing about the layoffs going on in the AI kind of in the economy for all these high tech jobs is I'm finding out from what I'm reading and talking to people like Paul Dietrich is that a lot of these people making $200,000 or $300,000 that are getting laid off aren't going for unemployment. They're just out doing other things because it's not the kind of money that makes any difference to them, or they've had a lot of money or saved a lot of money, so they're not really showing up on the statistics that we're all looking at. So, but the labor markets in that case then aren't showing any damage, as far as all the layoffs, as much for that particular sector of the market. So we're seeing that payrolls consistently stay pretty strong for the number of layoffs that we have. So I'll keep an eye on all this, but at some point with inflation, high cost of energy, it's going to take about a year for any normalcy to you to see a difference at the pump. Right now, I think I commented last night, gasoline prices around $4.50 a gallon, 4.58, I think this morning is the average according to AAA. And I expect it to hit $5 before the end of the year. So you're going to pay about $5 a gallon. And then fuel for diesel cars are going to be around $6 a gallon.
I was
Woohoo!
going to ask you, tell me my penance coming.
Yeah, but anyway, Kimberly, the good news is you get a little bit better gas mileage on yours, though.
You're right.
So anyway, but anyway, hang in there. I think there's hopefully there might be some the markets think they're going to settle this thing. I hope they do, but in my opinion, I don't think that it's going to be settled anytime soon. But anyway, there's my comments for the day, and I hope everybody has a great week. And turn it back over to you, Kimberly.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I think all of that being said, like Jody usually says, we start out this Wednesday, not Tuesday, this Wednesday every week with Tim's Talks, right? To talk about what's happening in the economy, because we all need to hear what's going on around us. We get it from so many different sources that it's hard to say what's happening. And so we appreciate you bringing that to us, just giving us a market update and a market outlook. What it says to me from our business and what we do every single day is people need to make more money, period. Gas is more expensive. It's double what they're used to paying. Inflation's going up. Housing prices are at least the same, but interest rates aren't really changing. So all of that is becoming more expensive for them. And it's step one in our financial needs analysis, right? At minimum, everybody needs to increase their income. Everybody, right? If they can't afford to set enough money away to prepare for emergencies and pay for life insurance and plan for retirement, what's their option? They have to make more money. They're not going to manage their budget and change it. And even if they did with, cutting, I used to say cut the cable, but now cut the streaming, right? Even if they cut the streaming or shopped cell phone providers or do the things that we know we can do to tweak our budget a little bit, when gas prices go up or inflation goes up, it's gone again, right? So that's not a sustainable solution to the problem, which is more money. So again, I think our business opportunity is a huge, huge, huge thing to say. And yes, we're all here to have our goals and dreams and make millions and all of that. But I'll remind you, just like we say in the BOP and just like we say in that income calculator, a $300 a month investment into a life insurance policy pays a brand new person at 45% over $1,600. That is significant income for a very small, amount of their time. So
Yeah,
remember that.
and
Mhm.
the other thing, real quick, think about it this way: is somebody filling up for gas once a week is costing them about $1.50 a gallon more. That's $1,500. One sale right there pays for their increased cost of gas on an annual basis. Put it in terms of what you can do to replace their cost of living, and that is a powerful statement right there.
It is powerful. And we need to remember that, right? Like we all talk really huge, big numbers, and that's important too to stretch people's visions. But it's also important to meet people where they are. What is their pain point? How do we fix it? How do we solve it? Whether it's their income and coming to work with us or their financial situation. So we're going to talk now about the term and IUL combo. We started that conversation last week, and we talked a little bit about that. We shared the abacus and where to find the IUL tools, which are fantastic. I'm going to show you that again right now, and then we're literally going to talk through, at least in my brain, how we do things. So let me get ready to share this. I probably should have logged into my back office. So as we're going here, let me show you on Abacus how we get to the sales tools, right? So first and foremost, it's abacuswizard.com. Mauricio, if you want to put that in the chat, I think you guys can go in and request access if you don't have it now. You can go do so. I know it was on hold for a minute for some technology updates and things like that, but I think it's back available again. So when
Oh,
you
we don't
log
see your screen. Okay, I see now we do.
yeah, I was getting there. When you log into Abacus, this is what it looks like, right? Like you've got your dashboard and it's here in front of you.
Can you hear me?
Yes? Are you talking to me? Okay. You guys can raise your hand if you have a question, then I'll let you unmute. But right now, let's talk about the dashboard, right? So we've got the dashboard and it's got everything, basically Tim's talks, right here at our fingertips, what's going on in the world around us. But if we look on the left-hand side of the screen and we go down to IUL tools and we click it, the very first thing says IUL Interactive. And this is what we showed you last week, right? So if I click Launch Tool, it's basically just a checkbox for you to say, what is an IUL? First and foremost, if you don't know how to articulate this and you don't know the answer to this question, you should go back here and you should read it yourself. And with every client, you might not need to pull up a visual, but if you do, this is a great visual just to walk them through all of those different pieces, right? It basically says an IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance Policy, combines life insurance protection with the potential for cash value growth tied to market index performance while protecting against market downturns. Period, right? So it gives you protection, growth potential, and flexibility. When people are looking for an investment, I promise you they want all of those things. And when we scroll down here to this beautiful box, right, we talk about growth. It's an index-linked compound interest scenario. We talk about safety. You've got a 0% floor, meaning you're never going to lose what you put in. And as we lock in that floor every year, every crediting anniversary, then that's our new floor, right? It goes up every single time we lock that in. So we have a guarantee against loss. You've got tax advantages with tax-free withdrawals, tax-free loans, tax-free death benefit. As long as you follow the rules inside this policy, the tax advantages are huge. And then you also have protection with living benefits and long-term care, and obviously a death benefit as well, right? So if we scroll back up here, and we want to actually talk about each of these areas, or somebody says, what do you mean tax advantages? Like, show me, how is that possible? How does that work? You don't have to get stumped on their question. You just go up here to this little box and you click tax advantages, right? And it pulls it up, you can read it. Well, the IUL tax advantages basically are based on these IRC codes, which is Internal Revenue Code, 72E, which is TEFRA, which talks about tax-free growth. You don't have to know what it means. I don't know what it means. I'm just reading the labels, right? IRC 7702 is DEFRA, which is tax-free distributions. IRC 7702B is tax-free living benefits and long-term care. And IRC 101A, TAMRA, is a tax-free death benefit. All you have to say is these are the codes that give them this benefits. You can read the little underlying piece of it as well if you choose to do so. But ultimately, it's right there for you, and it's your cheat sheet. So you've got that on the tax advantages. You've got that on the safety, right? We talk about indexing, and it shows you how to explain an index. So the market is the red line. It's going to go up and it's going to go down, right? Because that's what the market does. It's got great peaks and great valleys, right? And we see that on the screen. An indexed account is basically, remember, it gives you that 0% floor. So as the market goes up or the index goes up, then you get whatever growth is credited to you. But when that red line starts going down, your blue line stays level, right? So you never have those dips in the market or dips in your investment like you do in the traditional world, right? So it just shows you and explains that for you and kind of helps teach you, what that looks like. If they want to talk about growth, great. Here is an illustration from 2008 to 2017. It shows the true S&P 500 gain and loss those years. The S&P balance, which would simulate your 401k, your investment accounts. And then it shows you an IUL comparison, right? An IUL gain or floor, and then the IUL balance. Obviously, in this example, 12.5% is the cap. So it goes through that, and it says if you had your money in the market at $100,000 in the market and an IUL at the same time from 2008 to 2017, you'd have 185, almost 186,000 in your 401k or investment account, and you'd have almost 225,000 in your IUL without the volatility. What makes you feel more comfortable? It doesn't matter to me. We can do all of it, right? You have the protection conversation, right? You have permanent life insurance. If you guys will do one thing for me is take out whole life or IUL or UL or whatever. Most of the time I hear it whole life. I want a whole life policy. Okay, fine. And I always correct my clients. I correct my teammates. I'm like, no. There are two types of life insurance. There's term and there's permanent. And if you explain that to them, then you don't get into the cat and mouse game of I really want a whole life policy. Maybe they do, but probably they want a cash value life insurance policy, right? Probably that's what they're looking for. So if you can help them understand the difference in the terminology, a lot of times you won't get stuck on that. So a permanent life insurance policy, this is showing is up to age 120. It's giving you a tax-free death benefit. You're able to avoid probate because you've got your beneficiaries on there, right? And then you've got multiple options on how do you want to distribute it? Who do you want to get this money? And then you also have those living benefits with critical, chronic, terminal, and long-term illness. That if you had an issue, you could reach in and access a portion of that death benefit to help you while you're alive. Huge, huge, huge stories when we're talking about protection. Nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring, so let's just protect it all and go live like we want to live, right? Nobody wants to talk about this all day, every day, but they should plan for it and they should have it in place so that if, God forbid, the worst happens, they have options. Their families have options because they need solutions. And then finally, how does the cash value work? So on an IUL, you've got your cash value benefits. Your premiums are flexible, right? And then I'm kind of following this flow chart, so I'm making it up. So Mauricio, if I make a mistake, you can correct me. But you've got your cash value in the middle. You've got interest that you can gain on this cash value. Again, you've got the market index and the downside protection. But it's also liquid. If you have money in the cash availability on this account, you can withdraw it. You can take fixed or variable loans on this policy to pull that out so it's a tax-free bonus or benefit to you. And then again, if we look at the bottom on the tax-free side, it's after-tax contributions, right? Meaning you've already paid taxes on the money. It's sitting in your checking account. Now it's going into your investment, just like a Roth IRA, right? After-tax contributions. It's got tax-free accumulation, meaning it's going to grow tax deferred. And then when you pull that money out at the end of the day, as long as you follow the rules, your distribution should be tax-free. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you've got your cash value protection. So you're protected against predators, liens, creditors, lawsuits, all these things that sometimes we can't protect ourselves against. We can't predict what's going to happen in the future. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you knew they couldn't get to your assets inside of your life insurance at least? Yes, it's huge. So again, this is just, it's not to give you every single piece of an IUL, even though I'm sure if we went further through this policy or through this software, it would, but it's designed to give you just a quick overview to pique interest, to give a little bit of education, so then you can talk about what you want to talk about. Mauricio, do you have something you wanted to say?
Just probably that being in the field, and a lot of you will probably agree that the number one objections you will get is the fees, right? A lot of the TikTok information and the Dave Ramsey information, all that, they focus so much on the fees, on the upfront fees, on the fact that it's more expensive, and not really give the IUL credit for where it becomes really strong, where if it builds some very healthy cash value, it's hard to beat on the income side, right? This is something you buy and you die with. It's not like a 5-year plan or a 20-year plan to really get the full benefit of it. And I say that to say that it is in your client's mind as they're comparing in terms of the fees. So we added this one piece in there, which is the investment versus the IUL. This is concept, and you can dive. Obviously, if you really wanted to dive deep into it, the client would need to know what they're really paying long term in the managed money. Which again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just what you pay, but it's not necessarily less because you're paying 1% or 1.5% over that account size. But what you get in return, when you get advice and you have opportunity and you have potential, though it's not like it's a bad thing, But just know there is a fee there too. The fact that you front load the expenses in the beginning of the IUL, that's because there's mortality. There's some fees associated with what the insurance company needs to do to provide you with those benefits. But over the life of the program, if you look at it over your life expectancy, let's say age 85, 90, 100, you'll see that you'll pay around same, and you can see that in the IRR illustrations a sheet, which maybe Matt can talk more about that. But I when I show this to the client, it's like if you're going to get a Roth IRA, you're probably going to keep it for 40, 50 years, accumulation and distribution stage, right? Yes. Well, if you're going to get the IUL, you're also going to keep it for 50 years if you're 40 right now. And if that's the case, you let's say over the life of the program, you're going to pay that 1 to 1.5% at the end of the day. But what you get in return is now you get so much more in the early ages. You have less accumulation, but you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the event of debt, terminal illness, chronic illness, long-term care, these benefits. So learning how to articulate that and show the client the benefit of it, then it no longer becomes an objection, really, or anything that prevents you from actually helping the client add this product to their portfolio. So, hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And the other thing that I'll say, I'll stop my share for a second. The other thing that I will say is Mauricio is absolutely right. Educate your client. But if it's not a question that they ask you, it depends on your client. You have to understand how to read the room, right? There are a lot of people, and we talk about this all the time. Jody says Macon, Georgia math, right? I say third grade level. Maybe it's the same. Just kidding, not offending people in Macon. But all jokes aside, right? Like we want to keep this in common, easy, everyday language. If you have a more affluent client that needs to know all that information or that asks you that information, absolutely be prepared to tell them. But if you don't, know when to close your mouth and take the application, right? Know when to stop overcoming objections if there aren't objections there. So now I want to talk about how do we decide? So again, last week we did all the conceptual pieces. We just did that again and kind of showed you that tool, what you have access to, where it is. Now, how do I know how much money or how much life insurance my client needs, right? How do I know that? What does that look like? And I know we have calculators on it, but I want to give you a very, 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 very simple tool that you can do by hand. You can do sitting at, having coffee with someone, having this conversation, because it's very important that you understand the calculators, but you also understand how to simply articulate it. So when we meet with clients and we take their F&A, what are the two things that we're looking for when we gather their data? If you guys have heard me teaching for a while, you've heard me say it. So unmute, like engagement. I like for you guys to play with me on my Tuesday, Wednesday calls, whatever this is. What are the two things that we're looking for when we're looking at an F&A? Gail, don't say it yet unless somebody doesn't say it.
Monthly money is one of them.
Lump sum.
Oh,
Lump sums another.
Team, I'm so proud of y'all. Monthly money and lump sums, right? When we're taking
That's my
someone's
child.
F&A. What'd you say?
That's my child.
Yeah.
Great.
and Stuart, he's your child too.
Yeah.
I also am your child, Gail. Don't count me out.
Love
So
it.
monthly money and lump sums are what we're looking for. So right now, probability says most of the time an IUL is going to be monthly money. Yes, we can put lump sums there. No, we can't put, old 401ks, IRAs, things that are already pre-tax there without a whole different conversation. But I want you to think about monthly money. So at the end of that F&A, we're going to say, how much can you afford to set aside on a monthly basis to reach some of these goals and dreams? What is your budget? How much can you put aside? And they're going to give you a number. What other things are we looking for outside of just that number that they gave us to decide how much money they can put away monthly? Anybody know?
I want to know how much they're putting into their 401k and can be reallocated.
So explain that to me in third grade level.
Okay. So if the
And
company's
if you don't
matching,
put on your camera, I'm not going to let you speak again, but go ahead. I'll let you speak today. Oh,
there, you happy now?
I'm very
I was working
happy.
out and listening. So if you're putting in, if the company matches 3% of your pay, you're putting in 10%. you're guaranteeing on that extra 7%, you're going to pay taxes sometime in the future. And if you think your tax bracket in the future is going to go down, that's great. But if you ask, most people are going to say, well, taxes are going to go up. Because of course they are. Government be government. So if you take that 7% difference, whatever that number is, you can reallocate that into your IUL, and then have that grow tax deferred, and then pull the money tax free out later
Thank you.
when you need it.
Ding, 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 ding. Thank you. So that's what we're looking at when we look for monthly money. How much can they afford to set aside? And then where can we potentially reposition money that they're currently spending, right? So Stuart just gave you an example from their current 401k. They are overfunding their 401k. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't, but it gives you a portion that you can at least look at and see what makes sense for them. If they are, overpaying their mortgage, does that make sense to pay to overpay a mortgage that equity has 0% rate of return? I don't know. We'll have that conversation later. Does that make sense? Do they have plenty of money in a emergency fund and they're still overfunding it? I don't know, but that is why you ask all of these questions in detail on an FNA, so you can get the information and then you can make a plan for them. And I think that's the other piece that I want you all to remember, is that you're the doctor. When they come in and sit down with you and say, hey, these are my symptoms, it is your job and responsibility to say, these are the solutions. If you go into the doctor's office and you say, hey, these are my symptoms, prescribe me this medication, it might make sense, but it probably doesn't, right? So we need to, in that situation, we need to listen to the doctor, and we need to remind ourselves that we are the doctor. A lot of times we allow the clients to steer the conversation, and it's important to engage with them in the conversation, right? Because it's their money. Nobody cares more about it than they do. But it's also important that when you are confidently correct about what you're saying, that you say it with confidence and you say, hey, listen, I hear what you're saying, but this is why this makes sense. And just tell them you are the doctor in this situation. So now that we've decided we have monthly money that we're working with, somebody throw out, not Stuart, because you've already spoken, and thank you for taking your camera off. But somebody throw out a number, like what's an average number that somebody says they can afford to set aside on a monthly basis?
$300.
$300.
$300. Okay, we've got $300 a month. And how old are these people with $300? That matters.
40
25.
approximately.
Okay, so they're 40. So Electra, play my game with me for a minute. Okay, so this 40-year-old person can afford to set aside $300 a month, and we don't find anything else when we're looking through their FNA that we can reposition, right? So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to decide how much life insurance they need, right? How much life insurance do they need? Regardless of if it's term or permanent, how much do they need? How do we do that? What's our formula?
The dime,
The dime. And what does the dime stand for?
debts, income, mortgage, and education for
Right.
kids.
Debt, income, mortgage, and education. So this 40-year-old client, how much money do they have in debt? And you guys write it down. Write down D and write down this number. How much money do they have in debt?
30,000,
30,000. And how much money do they make per year?
80,000.
They make 80,000. At minimum, we're going to solve for 10 years of their income need, right? So that 80,000 in your notes, multiply it by 10, right? Super simple, super easy. How much is their mortgage? Because that's the next thing. So write down an M. How much is their mortgage?
400,000.
400,000. And do they have children?
2.
2. So if they have 2 kids, you can, whatever number you want to use. Let's just say that we're going to use $20,000 a year for college education, right? Times 2 times 4.
160.
That means they need 160,000. So if we've written this out, their dime says the debt is 30,000, the income is 80,000 times 10, the mortgage is 400,000, and the education is 160,000. So if we add that together, I'm going to go backwards, 160 plus 400 plus 800, right? Because we said 80,000 times 10 plus 30,000. Their death benefit need is $390,000, right? And that is what they need to cover their gap. We know that, right? So very, very simple way. And I know it's an abacus, but I'm going to show it to you a different way too. So just to give you options, and Mauricio, if you want to show them a simple way to figure it out in there too, I'm happy for you to do so. But I just want you to see how easy it is and what tools you have at your fingertips. So we're logged into our back office. Under tools and resources, I'm going to go down to see more. On the left-hand side, I've got term quotes from Corebridge and North American. I can quickly click on Corebridge. We're going to say that they're Georgia. Let's say it's a male. They're 40 years old and they need, we'll say 1.4 because 1.39 is basically 1.4 million. We're going to say it's monthly and they're super healthy. There's nothing wrong with them. This is going to tell you immediately, instantaneously, how much it's going to cost them, right? So if I look at this, I can get this 40-year-old client. That's very good. I was looking, I was like, is that true? $1.4 million, and we'll give them preferred non-tobacco instead of perfect or less than perfect. I can give them a 35-year term policy for $200 a month. Makes sense?
Hey,
Like, you
Kimberly.
guys see that? Yeah.
Kimberly, will you humor me and do 1.5? There's usually a price break there and not a whole lot of difference in cost.
I will in a second, just because I want to stay on this vein of like, I will for sure.
That's fair.
But just to show you that, right? So let's say, to me, the longest, cheapest term policy you can get it because you're going to want it. But even if we went to 20 years to cover maybe the need of their kids and the biggest need, that's $92 a month. So if this is where we are and they can afford to set aside $300 a month, and I take either 100 of it for a 20-year term or 200 of it for a 35-year term, is there any money left for an IUL? Probably not, right?
Not really.
Probably not in reality. It's probably not. So I'm going to say, I want you to have a 35-year term. We're going to cover your biggest need, which is the dime, which we talked about, and it gives you living benefits, and it's going to cost you $200 a month. Let's pretend that this client had $800 a month that they could set aside, okay? I'm still going to cover their death benefit need by term because it's going to be the cheapest way to give them the most amount of insurance for the longest period of time in their life, right? And once we do that, then I can take that 800, subtract the 200 that I'm spending, and now we have $600 a month that we can look at an IUL and see what that looks like. Make sense? So now we have a term policy that's going to cover them for a long period of time, and we have some money that we can afford to set aside in a permanent policy that's going to grow for them for cash value accumulation, distribution, all of that later down the road, right? So we have both of those in play. And my goal for them is to live forever. My goal for them is for their life to be perfect. But if it isn't, and they have a heart attack or stroke or cancer or something like that, I want them to have the term policy to access first. Why? Term has zero cash value. You only win the term game if you die or you get sick. And I tell my clients all the time, I hope you lose. Hope you lose every single penny that you put in this policy. I hope you never win that game, right? Because I don't want you to die and I don't want you to get sick. But if you do, and we never know what tomorrow brings, I would rather you pull from that first because my hope is that you get better and your IUL is still performing. So I'm going to stop here. Mauricio, I know you're unmuted, but I also have Matt here and I want him to be able to speak. So you want to say something just really quickly before, because I want to give him his proper time.
Something that could be, thank you so much, Kimberly. I would say yes. I think understanding how you get to those numbers is important. Then advocates will make a lot more sense to you. I do want to make you aware of a feature that it's there. That if you complete an FNA, then you want to take an application in just 2 minutes. You're able to do that. So we created an extension that you can add. Let me show you.
Can we do that next week, Mauricio?
Yeah,
Can we?
so let's do that next
and
week.
we'll
Just
give
know
that
of
the
it. You can
proper
go
time.
there and use it because I know a lot of us will take about 40 minutes, sometimes 50 minutes just to take a nap. So we reduce that time now to like 90 by 90%. So we'll dive into that.
Yeah, let's teach that next week.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Matt, We're ready for you. And we
Hello,
gave you
everybody.
some time. Thank you for
Hello,
joining us
hello.
today. If you don't know, this is Matt Salvatore Corbridge. We think he's fantastic. He's always available to help the team. You should give him all your business. Okay.
I appreciate that plug. I wish everybody introduced me like that. That's perfect. No, this is always a good call to be on, and I have a personal problem with going last only because I feel the need to comment on all my previous speakers' comments because I think everybody was spot on. I mean, some of Tim's remarks, Kimberly's commentary, and then obviously some things that Mauricio piped in with as well. It's so important to know how these products work and not just be able to be an order taker for your customers. There's plenty of people out there that can be an order taker, but it's your job to bring them the level of education that they deserve, that we all agree that we didn't have, for so many years growing up. And until we were brought into this business, there were things that we didn't know and didn't learn and nobody taught us, right? So it's our job to always go in education first. I think that's such a huge benefit to what you guys do versus what the traditional advisors do. Traditional advisors sit behind their desk and run their models, and they are the order taker or the order teller, right? They tell clients what they're going to do. You guys really bring that level of education, which I so appreciate. I do want to just make a comment about IUL in general, that it's not magic, right? It's math, it's tax code, it's legal code. These are all filed with the state. It's not a get rich quick, right? And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about the product type and really where this industry started, where it progressed into, where we are today, and then the onset of all these different people on social media, some good, some bad, some indifferent. I would always take caution when a client comes to you and says, I want an IUL, right? You can certainly take that order, right? Submit the application, but it's so important that you ask the following questions. What is it that you're looking for, right? The way we operate is we do a needs analysis. We determine if it's the right thing for you. It's not the right thing for everybody. As Kimberly just showed, if you've got $300 a month in budget, but you need $1.5 million in face amount, it might not be the best thing for you right now. We can certainly talk about term conversions, which is a huge benefit to some of the carriers you have on your platform, is they have the ability to convert those terms into permanent insurance in the future. And if they really want that IUL, you come back to them and you have the conversation about you need to make more money. I'm not comfortable putting you in an IUL for $150 a month. You've got to make more money for this to be worthwhile so that all these myths don't come true for you about cost of insurance being too high and fees being too high. It's because people that are saying the fees are too high are not putting enough money into it, right? This isn't something where you can just put $50 or $75 a month or $100 a month unless you're maybe a newborn, right? So important for you to have that education level, talk about what the product can do, right? And then determine if it's a good fit for them. If it's not a good fit, you certainly go with the term approach. You get them covered because they need the insurance, right? There's 100 million people out there that are uninsured or underinsured. And they need the living benefits, right? Because they don't have a bucket of money sitting around just waiting for them to get sick, right? As it relates to IUL specifically, there are certainly different types, and I think Kimberly mentioned it earlier too. People say they want whole life. They don't really know what they're asking for. Whole life is a type of permanent insurance, but again, going back to the level of education that our clients need is there's term insurance and there's permanent insurance. Under the permanent insurance umbrella, there's VUL, IUL, UL, whole life, current assumption UL. There's so many different types of products that exist there, and we will determine which one is appropriate for you based on doing a full needs analysis, right? But for my conversation today, for the next 10 minutes or so, there's really two main types of each of these products, right? There's one that's focused on accumulation, and there's one that's focused on protection. Some clients just need protection. Some people want legacy. Some people want wealth transfer. Some people want long-term care risks taken care of. They're not looking to accumulate cash value. And so that is a protection-focused conversation. You should be able to, in your conversations with your customers, be able to identify and pick up on, is this an accumulation sale or is this a protection sale? There's nothing wrong with either one of them, but they're for different people, right? And so you've got to know that each company offers different products that operate a little bit differently. I'm going to start with protection, and then we'll talk about accumulation in a few minutes here. The protection conversation that we have been talking about at least for the last almost 15 years now is called the butterfly chart. And I'm not going to go through the butterfly chart. I trust that many of you have seen that already. But I will share real quickly an update that we've had to that. If I can share my screen, please, Kimberly. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to pull this picture up here, and then we'll talk about the conversation on the accumulation side as well, because it is a little bit different. Ultimately, when you're talking to your clients about protection, I think Kimberly mentioned earlier too, it's better to have your living benefits on a term policy than it is to have it on a permanent policy. Because if you need that acceleration at some point, you have one of those diagnoses, a cancer, heart attack, stroke, Alzheimer's, coma, paralysis, whatever you want to throw out there, it's better to give up the term because that would end at some point anyway, right? Much better to keep the permanent policy in force for as long as possible because that's going to be the policy that you die with, right? So the conversation around getting your living benefits protected and the bulk of your insurance need protected with term, and then letting the IUL do what the IUL is supposed to do, right? Let the IUL be that cash accumulation cow. Let's have the minimum death benefit so that we can really focus and see some really great accumulation on the accumulated value of the accumulation focused IUL. Okay. On the protection side, though, a number of things we talk about. Typically, on the right-hand side, those post-retirement risks are really where the protection IUL cell comes into place. It's things like financial risks, healthcare costs, reduced Social Security income when your spouse passes away. All of those things can be resolved or mitigated if we had some type of permanent protection in place, right? But what we've done on this piece here, we've added a second page to it that allows you to break this down, and this is consumer approved, right? And I think that doing the dime needs analysis is great, but I think it's more important to show your customer as you're doing it, or give them the pen, have them write it out, right? Because oftentimes, if you show somebody they need $1.5 million of insurance and they're making 80 grand a year, they're like, Kimberly, that's crazy. I've never had $1 million. My family doesn't have $1 million. I've never seen $1 million, right? It's hard for them to fathom because they don't think in terms of lump sums. They think in terms of their monthly nut, right? How much they're making, how much goes out. Maybe they think, 5 years in the future, but they're not thinking about if they died today, how much would their family need to have another 20 or 30 years of financial security? And so it's so important for you to do that needs analysis with them involved. Again, you're not just sitting behind the screen, behind the table and writing all this stuff in secret and giving them a number. It's an exercise. Do it with your client, right? So then if they say that's too much money, you can say, okay, which one of these do you want to cross out? Which one of these do you want to eliminate or change or lower? Give them some more of the control in the conversation. And this piece is really great at doing that because this is, again, consumer approved, and you can jot these numbers down with them. You can even put this piece in the policy packet when you deliver it to them. So if they ever open it up again, they remember exactly why they bought what they did, right? Nobody's going to come in behind them and say, oh, Gail tried to sell you too much insurance. They're going to say, no, look, I wrote it out. This is for the kids. This is for the income replacement. This is for the mortgage. They will know exactly what they bought, and there's not going to be buyer's remorse. They're not going to cancel a policy in 6 months or a year, right? So this might help you with determining the appropriate amount of what is considered term insurance, and that's going to be your pre-retirement risks, and then what amount is really for permanent insurance, and that's going to be your post-retirement risks, the stuff that never goes away, the stuff that you want covered for the next 40, 50 years, as Mauricio mentioned. These are not short-term deals. These are tools that we are providing our clients that are going to help them financially for the next 50 years. We've got to have that level of passion and conviction in what these products can do. Again, they're not magic, right? It's math, it's tax code, it's legal code. All this stuff is designed very intently across all product sides. On the accumulation side, again, a little bit different of a conversation. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. A lot of it is using this in conjunction with what you're also using, right? Things like Roth IRAs, they're great. Things like 401ks, they can be great if you're getting a good company match, right? Things like non-qualified brokerage accounts are great for the short term, and you've got upside potential there. They're all tools that work in conjunction, right? Throw in HSAs and HYSAs. All of these different plans work together to complete our client's financial house, right? There's the windows, there's the doors, there's the roof, there's the foundation, there's the studs. All of them work together to give you a house. It's the same deal with financial services, right? And so the IUL might be a piece of it, but it's very rare where you could say, oh, stop everything else you're doing, liquidate everything else and dump it here. This is the best thing, right? It's a plan. It's part of a multiple policy approach, a multiple plan approach. But what IUL does really well is not give you a greater alpha or a greater chance of higher returns, right? We know that there's caps on all these products, whether it's 10% or 11%, somewhere in that range, you're going to be capped. But what it does do is it mitigates the volatility and the negative performance, right? I'm going to share this here real quick. Let me pull this up. Share, slideshow, share. Right, when we talk about IUL, it's a checkbox of a number of different things that clients are looking for. And so when they say, I want an IUL, well, what is it you're looking for? I can tell you what IUL does, right? Income tax-free death benefit. We know that. It's life insurance, right? That's one of the best parts of either term, UL, VUL, whole life. All these products are tax-free death benefits, right? They're just phenomenal. Built-in living benefits. Not every company offers these, and the ones that you guys have on your platform certainly do, and they're some of the best in the industry about providing living benefits. The cancers, the heart attacks, the strokes, everything I mentioned, it gives your client the ability to transfer some risk out of their pocket and out of their portfolio into the insurance companies. Okay. No income limitations affecting eligibility or contributions. So we know that 401ks, you can only put in 24 grand a year. IRAs, you can only put in 7 grand a year. And if you make too much money, you can't put anything in unless you do a backdoor Roth conversion, right? There's caveats and limitations on just about every financial tool out there. Again, what IUL provides is tax-deferred accumulation, tax-free distributions using loans and withdrawals, no penalty for access prior to retirement age, no RMDs, and if something happens to you, it's self-completing, meaning your family will be fulfilled even if you're no longer here to continue planning long-term, right? I want to touch on 2 of these here. I think most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but I will touch on the 10% penalty for cash access prior to 59 and a half. I work for a company that has a phenomenal 401k, right? We've got a 9% match, which is almost unheard of. I know some of you have heard me talk about this before. There's also the ability to use the Roth 401k, which is where 90% of my money is, right? All of my contributions have been going into the Roth 401k for the last 10 years that I've been at Corebridge. But the other part of the puzzle is my 9% match. My 9% match from my employer goes into the traditional account every year because they're not giving up the tax break for me. They like me, but they're not giving up their tax break. They're going to contribute it on a pre-tax basis. And so all the employer contributions are still going to be taxable to me when I turn on that income stream. But we're at a point in history where people are not looking at retirement at 65 anymore. Right? Everybody's trying to figure out how to retire sooner, how to retire with more flexibility, how to work in a gig economy or a part-time economy. I think that the rules around retirement have changed from when our grandparents and our parents retired. And so now if you ask me, Matt, could you leave Corebridge and have financial success? And I'd say no, because all my money's tied up in a 401k. Right? It's locked behind a trap door. I cannot get to it. If I'm still working here, I physically cannot take any money out of it aside from a loan, which there's interest associated with. But even if I left and started taking money out, it's fully taxable and a 10% penalty. So it's pretty much locked up. I can't touch it. Again, what the IUL provides is the ability to access your funds while you're still working or while you're transitioning from one business into another or while you're taking a sabbatical or a leave of absence where you can use that money to continue to live your life, right? That's the benefit of IUL as a whole. Again, there's a number of different types. There's a lot of different products out there. There's different caps. There's different indices. But I think the biggest takeaway is that you've got to do that proper needs analysis. You've got to do that proper level of education because oftentimes this does check a few of the boxes that our clients are looking for. But it's not a one-trick pony. It's not a, do this for 2 years and you're set financially forever. It's part of a plan. And that's really my commercial here today. Kimberly, I'll throw it back over to you for any questions, comments, closing thoughts, or anything else you want me to cover in the next 90 seconds.
90 seconds. I want you to talk for the next 3 hours. I think everybody loves it. And I appreciate the way you articulate things and obviously jumping on. I think today was fantastic. I think we need more of that and just real conversations about how we integrate it into everything that we do and where it fits and, how it works. So I'm good. Anybody have any burning questions that they want to ask in the next minute and a half of our little allotted time? Feel free to do so. If not, we're going to blow you a kiss really quickly. So
I do have a question. Hi, Matt. Good to
Hi,
see
Electra.
you. I was just pulling out the list of clients that I have done terms in the past 2 years that I've been with HEI. And I was thinking about, calling them and reviewing their current financial situation, and see, how maybe, if it's time, because if I only did the term, it was because, let's say the example that Kim just did. So can you help me like with a conversation like on what to say to them, to propose them, to see if evaluate, see if they can do now in IUL and
Yeah,
convert?
absolutely. It's a great question, and I recommend that every agent do that. I mean, there's a lot of people in this Zoom that have been, with HGI for a number of years and writing business with Corebridge, formerly AIG, for a number of years. What Electra was talking about is so important, and I appreciate you sharing that. Go on Connext, pull up your in-force business, download your book of business, every client you've ever written with us, and most of them are going to be eligible for term conversions, right? And so when you call your customer, you can almost play dumb and just say, listen, there are some things in your contract that I don't think I discussed with you up front, right? Some additional benefits that might be applicable to you now that weren't when we met 2-3 years ago. Do you have some time for us to sit down, look at your current term plan, see if there's any way we can maybe save you some money each month or explore some additional benefits, right? You could say that mortality rates have changed, the pricing has changed. We may be able to put you in a better position than you were, but also explore some other features and benefits built into the contract. And ultimately, what you're talking about is a term conversion, right? Term conversions, giving the client the ability to convert a piece of their insurance or all of their term insurance into either protection-focused IUL or accumulation-focused IUL. It's important that during this time you get updated beneficiaries, right? You just do a full policy review with them and then go into your traditional IUL presentation about why maybe that makes sense for them. But I think at first the approach should be more on, let me make sure I have your file updated, all your kids' names on the policy correctly. Let's make sure that it's still the right amount and we can't maybe save you some money. But then you can go into the approach on the IUL side and say, for a portion of this, it may make sense now as you get a little bit older, as your income has increased, to convert pieces of this into something permanent that's never going to end, right? And then you can decide whether it's accumulation or protection.
Got it. Okay. And how many months does a client needs minimum to qualify to convert?
So you can convert almost immediately when you place a term policy.
I think
Most
William had
agents wait
mentioned.
until 12 months because there would be a chargeback on the term if you replace it in the
Right.
first year. So most just wait until that 13th month or that first policy anniversary. But then again, last thing I'll say, one of the benefits of our term product in the industry is you've got the full duration of the term up to age 70 to convert it. So there's really no cutoff until you reach age 70 years old or the policy ends. Now you don't want to wait that long because it gets more expensive. But the conversion privileges are phenomenal into
Right.
some really great products.
Wonderful. Thank
Hey,
you so
Matt.
much, Matt.
You're welcome.
Hey, Matt, I know you told this to me before, and I won't lie, I forgot. What are the minimums for converting term to permanent?
$100,000 per conversion. So the conversion has to be at least 100,000.
Are there
Okay,
any
thank you.
premium credits offered?
There are not. I'll just keep it simple and say they're not. There are some older series of products where there are some conversion credits, but I'd say a wide majority, no. The only credit you're getting is the credit for your health when you bought the term policy. Maria,
Okay.
last question.
Yeah, last question, Maria.
Hi. A quick question, Mike. You, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe then when you do the conversion, you're going to keep the health rate than you had when you have the term, right?
Absolutely.
But the conversion depends on your age, then this is how you're going to apply to the permanent. That's the only difference. And you don't have to do any other health exam and nothing like this. Just to make sure.
Correct. Yes. So the health rating, when you run the illustration for the IUL, you're going to use the health rating they were approved for when they bought that term policy, but you're going to use their date of birth or their age today, right? So it's current age, existing rate class for that illustration. No underwriting required unless you're adding riders or adding face amount. It's a paper application, but other than that, it's like a 3 or 4 day process for a term conversion to go from application to enforce. You get full commissions on it. The client gets another policy. It's just great news all around. We got to talk more about term conversions.
Awesome.
And you tell us, I'm sorry, Kim, you tell us that you don't have to convert the whole amount. You can do partially as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, most people are not going to convert. If they've got $1 million policy, most people are not going to convert $1 million. But they may convert 100,000. They may convert 250 every couple of years, right? And I think during the term sale, it's important for you to tell them about it, right? And say, listen, today the best option and the best thing for your affordability and for your cash flow was to get you a term policy. You're protected, you've got living benefits, your family's taken care of. But over the next couple of years, we're going to talk about converting pieces of this over time into something permanent, right? So when you call them next year to do a policy review or a beneficiary review, they're already thinking about this conversion, right? And you could talk about it as many times as you need to and let them know that every year, you could give them the illustration, every year this price is going to get more and more, right? So they're going to want to convert sooner than later. But yes, absolutely. You can convert $100,000 increments as many times as you need to.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to you guys for staying on for a few minutes longer. This is recorded on our YouTube channel, so if you want to watch it again or share it with your teammates who weren't able to be on, please do so. We'll see you same time, same place next Wednesday.